The old man was kicked out by his own sons, but a stranger embraced him and changed his life. William Thompson held the worn-out suitcase with both hands while listening to his own children's shouts. The words came like stones, each one hurting more than the last. It was when Robert, the oldest son, pointed to the gate and said the words William never imagined he would hear. "You can leave, Dad. We don't want you here anymore." William felt his legs weaken. 70 years of life, 45 years of marriage, 3 children raised with every sacrifice. And now he was being thrown out of his own house as if he were a complete stranger. "Robert, my son, let me explain. I just wanted to help Mrs. Wilson. She has no one. She was—" "Help?" Jennifer, the middle daughter, interrupted with a sharp voice. "You sold your car, that Ford Mustang that was worth a fortune. You spent it all on a stranger." "She needed medicine, treatment. She had no one," William tried to explain, but his voice came out weak, tired. "And what about us?" Michael, the youngest, crossed his arms. "Don't we need anything? Did you ever think that money was our inheritance?" William looked at the 3 faces in front of him, faces he had watched being born, growing up, faces that now seemed like strangers. Elizabeth, his wife, stood behind the children, her eyes downcast, without the courage to look at him. "Elizabeth," he called softly. She raised her eyes for a second, and William saw tears there, but she said nothing. She just turned her face away. "Goodbye, Dad. Good luck." Robert made a gesture with his hand, pointing to the street. William took a deep breath. His hands trembled as he held the suitcase. Inside were just a few clothes, documents, and an old family photo. That was all he had now. He took one last look at the house he had built brick by brick, working as an engineer for decades. The house where he raised his children, where he laughed, cried, lived. The house that now rejected him. Without saying another word, William turned his back and began to walk. His steps were slow, heavy. The suitcase seemed to weigh tons, or maybe it was his heart. As he turned the corner, he looked back one last time. The door was already closed. William walked aimlessly through the streets of Lexington. The city he knew so well now seemed strange, cold. The afternoon sun beat down hard, but he felt cold inside. Where would he go? He had no siblings. His parents had passed away years ago. The few friends he had left were his age, also with their own difficulties. His feet led him to Liberty Square, in the city center. It was a place he had always liked. Old trees provided shade, pigeons pecked at the ground, and there were always people passing by. William sat on a bench. He placed the suitcase beside him and stared into nothingness. His mind went back to the argument. How had it come to this? He remembered Mrs. Wilson, the elderly neighbor who had lived alone for years. He had seen her collapsing on the sidewalk 3 weeks ago. He took her to the hospital, discovered she needed urgent treatment. She had no money, no family. What was he supposed to do? Let her suffer? He sold the 1978 Ford Mustang he had kept so dearly. The car was worth a good amount, he knew, but Mrs. Wilson was alive because of it. To William, he had done the right thing, but his children didn't see it that way. They found out when the buyer came to pick up the car. Robert turned red with anger. Jennifer screamed that he was senile. Michael said they would take action, and they did. They kicked out their own father. What they didn't know was that William didn't have much money left anyway. Over the past 5 years, he had spent almost all his savings saving Robert's business, a building materials store that was sinking in debt. William sold a plot of land he owned, took out a loan using the house as collateral. Also, his son wouldn't lose the business. Robert never knew about that. William did everything in the shadows, talking directly with creditors, paying off debts without any fanfare. He didn't want his son to feel humiliated, but now, sitting on that bench, William wondered if it had been worth it. Had he made mistakes as a father? Had protecting his children too much made them selfish? The evening was coming on. People were leaving the square. Soon William was alone. The hard bench hurt his tired back, but he had nowhere to go. He tried to close his eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Every noise made him jump. The night grew colder. He opened his suitcase, took out an old jacket and put it on. It didn't help much. The hours passed slowly. William stayed there, looking at the stars, trying to understand how his life had turned upside down in just a matter of hours. When the sun began to rise, he felt exhausted. He hadn't slept at all, his whole body ached. And now, what would he do? It was then that he saw a young man approaching. He must have been in his early 30s, with dark hair and a trimmed beard. He was wearing jeans and a grey sweatshirt. He carried a paper bag. The young man stopped in front of William and smiled. "Good morning, sir. I noticed you spent the night here. I brought some coffee and a grilled sandwich. Would you like it?" William looked at the young man. Part of him wanted to accept. He was hungry and cold, but his pride spoke louder. "No, thank you. I'm just resting a bit before I move on." The young man didn't insist. He just left the bag next to William on the bench. "I'll leave it here. If you change your mind, it's there for you." He winked and walked away. William looked at the bag. The smell of hot coffee wafted up to him. His stomach growled, but he didn't touch the food. He wasn't a beggar. He was a retired engineer. He had dignity. The day passed slowly. William remained seated on the bench, watching life go by. Mothers with children, young people running, street vendors. Everyone had somewhere to go, except him. In the afternoon, he needed to use the restroom. He used one at a nearby gas station. He looked at himself in the mirror and was startled by his own reflection. He had stubble, sunken eyes, and a disheveled appearance. In just one day, he seemed to have aged 10 years. He returned to the square. The bench was his territory now. He sat down again and stayed there, lost in thought. When night fell again, he saw the same young man approaching. This time, he brought a thin blanket. "Good evening, sir. I brought this. The night gets very cold." The young man held out the blanket. "I told you I don't need charity," William replied, but his voice was weaker. "It's not charity. It's humanity," the young man said, placing the blanket next to him on the bench. "My name is Andrew Miller, and yours?" William hesitated. He didn't want to talk, but something about the young man's kind manner disarmed him. William Thompson. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Thompson. If you need anything, I work in that grey building over there." He pointed to a small building across the square. "Second floor. Feel free to stop by." Andrew left without waiting for a reply. William stared at the blanket. When the night grew truly cold, and he couldn't stop shivering any longer, he picked up the blanket and covered himself. It wasn't thick, but it helped. That second night was even worse than the first. His body was sorer, his head throbbed, and he felt a deep sadness that seemed endless. On the third day, William was weak. He hadn't eaten properly, he hadn't slept. His vision sometimes went blurry. He knew he needed to do something, but he had no strength. That's when Andrew appeared again. This time he sat down beside him on the bench. "Mr. Thompson, may I ask you something? Do you have any training? What did you work as?" William looked at the young man. Why did he want to know? "I'm a civil engineer, retired." Andrew's eyes lit up. "An engineer, really? 42 years in the profession." Andrew was silent for a moment, as if thinking. Then he took a deep breath. "Mr. Thompson, I'll be direct. I have a small design office here in Lexington. I've got some backlogged work and need help, especially with older construction projects. Would you be willing to help me?" William turned his head slowly to look at Andrew. "Why?" "You don't know me." "True, but I know desperation when I see it, and I recognize honor too." Andrew spoke sincerely. "I'm not offering charity, it's real work. I need someone with experience." "I have nowhere to stay," William admitted quietly. "The office has a sofa. It's not much, but—" "I'll pay rent," William interrupted. "I won't accept it for free." Andrew smiled. "How about this? You help me with the projects and I provide the space. Fair deal." William fell silent. Part of him wanted to accept, but he was afraid to trust, afraid to be disappointed again. "I don't know, son. I think—" "1 week," Andrew proposed. "Give me 1 week. If it doesn't work out, no problem." William looked at the worn suitcase beside him. He looked at the bench where he'd spent 2 awful nights. He looked at the young man with sincere eyes before him. 1 week. he agreed. Andrew helped William stand up. The old engineer was dizzy, but managed to stay on his feet. He picked up his suitcase and followed the young man to the grey building across the square. They climbed the stairs to the second floor. Andrew opened a door with a small sign that read, A. Miller Design and Construction. The office was small but organized. There was a desk with a computer, drafting boards on the walls with architectural plans, a shelf full of technical books, and in the corner, an old but clean sofa. "Welcome," Andrew said. "The bathroom is over there. It has a shower. If you want to take a shower, feel free." William looked around. It wasn't much, but it was infinitely better than the park bench. "Thank you," was all he could say. While William showered and got ready, Andrew made fresh coffee and bought bread from the corner bakery. When the engineer came out of the bathroom, with clean clothes and a shaved face, he looked like a different person. They sat down to have coffee. William ate slowly, savoring every bite. It had been 3 days since he'd eaten properly. "So, Mr. Thompson, tell me, what happened?" Andrew asked carefully. William fell silent. He didn't want to talk about it. It was too humiliating. But something in Andrew's gentle manner made him open his mouth, and for the first time he told everything. About Mrs. Wilson, about the Ford Mustang, about his children, about being thrown out. The words came out with difficulty, stuck in his throat. Andrew listened to everything without interrupting. When William finished, the young man shook his head. "You did the right thing, you know. You saved a life. That's worth more than any car." "My children don't think so." "Then your children are wrong." Andrew spoke with conviction. "And I'll tell you something, Mr. Thompson. People of true value are rare. You're one of them." William felt his eyes burn. It had been so long since he'd heard kind words, so long since he'd felt valued. After coffee, Andrew showed him the projects that needed reviewing. They were renovations of old houses in downtown Lexington. The young man had gotten some contracts but was having trouble with the original blueprints. William put on his glasses and looked at the drawings. His fingers touched the paper with familiarity. This was his territory. Here he knew exactly what to do. "This one has a structural error," he pointed out. "See this beam, it can't handle the load they put on it." Andrew came closer, interested. "What do you mean?" "When they did the renovation, they changed the weight distribution, but they didn't reinforce the foundation. Over time, it will crack." "And how do we fix it?" William picked up a pencil and started drawing. His hands moved with confidence, marking points, making notes. It was like riding a bike you never forget. Andrew watched, fascinated. It became clear to him that he had a master there. They spent the whole afternoon reviewing projects. William found problems in almost all of them, mistakes that could cause serious damage in the future, and for every problem he had a solution. When evening came, Andrew ordered Chinese food. They ate while continuing to work. William was so focused, he didn't even notice time passing. At 10 at night, Andrew yawned. "I think we need to stop for today." "You must be tired." William then realized he really was exhausted. But it was a good kind of tired. The tiredness of someone who had worked, who had been useful. "I'm going home," Andrew said. "Make yourself comfortable here. Lock the door from the inside, okay? I'll be back early tomorrow." After Andrew left, William looked around the office. He was alone, but he didn't feel as lost as he had on the park bench. He had something to do. He had a purpose. He lay down on the sofa. It wasn't comfortable, but it was warm and safe. And for the first time in 3 nights, William managed to sleep. In the following days, William and Andrew established a routine. The young man arrived early with coffee and bread. They worked together, reviewing projects, correcting mistakes, creating solutions. In the afternoon, Andrew went out for meetings with clients while William stayed in the office finishing the work. The engineer discovered that Andrew was only 32 years old and had been running the business alone for 2 years. The young man was hard-working and dedicated, but still had much to learn. "Mr. William, look at this project here." Andrew showed the plans for a large house. "The client wants to build a pool in the backyard." William studied the drawings carefully. His experienced eyes scanned every line, every measurement. "Where exactly does he want to put it?" "Here, in this flat area," Andrew pointed. William shook his head negatively. Can't do it. See this dotted line? That's where the neighborhood's main sewer line runs. If you dig there, it could cause a serious problem. The pool has to be on the other side. But the client said that area gets more sun. Then he'll have to choose between sun and not having a burst sewer in his house, William replied firmly. Sometimes the client isn't right, Andrew. Our job is to protect him, even if he doesn't understand it at the time. Andrew smiled. You have lessons I'd never learn in any college. Experience, young man. 42 years watching people make mistakes in construction. I learned to smell trouble from a distance. The first week passed quickly. On Sunday, Andrew showed up at the office with a proposal. Mr. William, the trial week is over, but I'd like you to stay, not as an assistant, but as a consulting partner. You would add a lot to the business. William was surprised. Partner? Young man, I don't have money to invest. You don't need money. Your knowledge is worth more than any financial investment. 20% of net profits. What do you think? It was a generous offer. William knew that, but he was hesitant. Andrew, you barely know me. Why are you doing this? The young man became serious. Because in 1 week you corrected mistakes that could have cost me lawsuits. Because your advice has already saved me headaches, and because I believe good people deserve chances. William felt a lump in his throat. I need to think. Of course, no pressure. What Andrew didn't know was that William still had hope. Hope that his children would change their minds, that they would call to apologize, that they would look for him. But the days passed, and no call came. 2 weeks after being thrown out of his home, William was reviewing a project when his cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Dad? It was Jennifer's voice. William's heart raced. Jennifer, my daughter, how are you? Dad, we need to talk. Where are you? I'm in an office downtown. I'm fine. I'm working. Working, Dad? You're 70 years old. You should be resting. But I like to work, daughter, and I need to support myself. Dad, listen. We thought about it, and maybe we went too far. Maybe you can come back. But there are conditions. William sat down. His hands trembled holding the phone. What conditions? You sign a power of attorney for me and Robert to manage the finances. That way, these things like spending money on strangers won't happen again. William closed his eyes. It wasn't an apology. It was an agreement with terms. And your mother? How is she? Mom is fine. She agrees we need to look after the family's assets. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Jennifer, I didn't spend money on a stranger. Mrs. Wilson has been our neighbor for 15 years. She needed help. Dad, please, do you accept the conditions or not? William took a deep breath. He looked around the office. He looked at the projects spread on the desk. He looked at the sofa where he had slept the last few weeks. No, he replied. What do you mean, no? I'm not signing any power of attorney. And you know why, Jennifer? Because you're not worried about me. You're worried about money you think I have. Dad, let me tell you something you don't know, William continued, feeling an old anger rising. 5 years ago, when Robert was drowning in debt with the store, who saved him? I sold a plot of land I had, took out a loan, paid it all off. I spent almost all my savings so your brother wouldn't lose the business. I did it all secretly, so as not to humiliate him. Jennifer was silent on the other end of the line. So don't come talking to me about wasting money. I spent my whole life taking care of you, and when I needed help, you threw me out. Dad, we didn't... I have to go now, Jennifer. I have work to do. He hung up. William's hands were shaking. He put the phone down on the desk and went to the window. He stood looking down at the street, trying to calm his racing heart. Andrew entered the office a few minutes later and noticed something was wrong. Mr. William, did something happen? William told him about the call. Andrew listened to everything, shaking his head. They want to control you. I know. And you did the right thing by refusing. Did I? William looked at the young man. Sometimes I wonder if I'm not the one who's wrong, if I shouldn't just accept it and go back home. even if it's with conditions. Andrew put his hand on William's shoulder. Mr. William, you can sleep on that sofa and still have more dignity than if you went back with your head down. Dignity is priceless. Those words struck a chord deep within William. Andrew was right. He had lost a lot, but he hadn't lost his value as a person. I accept your proposal, William said suddenly. The partnership, I accept. Andrew's face lit up. Really? Really. Let's make this business grow together. The two shook hands. A new phase was beginning there, not just professionally, but personally too. In the following days, William threw himself into work with renewed vigor. He and Andrew complemented each other perfectly. The young man had energy and a modern touch. The engineer had experience and wisdom. Together, they formed a strong team. Clients began to notice the difference. The projects came more detailed, more secure. The renovations carried out under William's supervision had no problems. The firm's reputation began to grow. 1 month after starting to work with Andrew, William was inspecting a renovation when something caught his attention. It was a large house in the Hillcrest neighborhood, belonging to a man named Richard Wilson. The owner had hired Andrew to do a complete renovation, replace the roof, remodel the bathrooms, paint everything. It was a big job and would pay well. But while William was inspecting the structure, something bothered him. He climbed onto the roof to get a better look. What he found frightened him. He came down quickly and went straight to talk to Andrew, who was chatting with the owner in the garden. Andrew, I need to speak with you. It's urgent. The two stepped aside. William was serious. This roof can't just be replaced. The structure is compromised. The main beams are giving way. If we only change the tiles, the entire ceiling could collapse in no time. Are you sure? But that will increase the cost significantly. I'm sure. And what's more, there are cracks in the foundation. We need to open up the walls to see how far they go. This house has serious structural problems. Andrew turned pale. That job had a fixed budget. If he had to do everything William was saying, the cost would triple. The client might back out, and they would lose the contract. What do we do? Andrew asked. We do the right thing. We call the owner and explain everything. That's what they did. William showed the cracks, explained the risks, sketched out what needed to be done. Mr. Wilson listened with growing attention. How much will it cost? He asked at the end. Andrew quickly did the calculations. About $120,000. I know it's much more than we agreed. How many professionals came here before you? Mr. Wilson interrupted. I don't know. Three professionals came, looked, and said it was just a matter of replacing the roof. If you hadn't noticed this, how long until my house would collapse? William answered. Between 1 and 3 years, depending on the rains. But it would collapse. Mr. Wilson fell silent for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. You just saved my life and my family's. Do the full job. You can start tomorrow. Andrew and William left the house relieved. In the car, the young man looked at the engineer. Mr. William, thank you. You taught me an important lesson today. What? That doing the right thing pays off. Always. William smiled. It felt good to be teaching again. It felt good to be useful. The work on Mr. Wilson's house lasted 2 months. William supervised everything personally, ensuring every detail was done correctly. Andrew handled the administrative part and the other clients that were coming in. The business was growing. With money coming in, Andrew suggested they rent a small apartment for William to live in, but the engineer refused. I'm fine in the office. We save money this way and invest more in the business. The truth was different. William still didn't feel ready to have a home again. The pain of the eviction was still fresh. And in a way, the office was his home now. There he had purpose. He had value. 3 months had passed since William had been evicted. He was walking through downtown Lexington when he saw someone he knew. It was Susan, an old colleague from his time working at a large construction company. William? William Thompson? She called out. He turned. It took him a second to recognize her. Susan! Long time no see! They greeted each other. Susan looked William up and down. He looked different, thinner, with simple clothes, but there was something in his eyes she couldn't quite define. A new determination. What have you been up to? "You disappeared," she said. "I'm back in the market. I'm in partnership with a young engineer, doing projects and renovations." "Oh, really? I thought you had really retired." "I had, but you know how it is. Retirement wasn't made for me." They chatted a bit more. Susan mentioned she worked at a medium-sized construction company, had some interesting projects, said she might be able to send some work William and Andrew's way. "Please do. I'll leave you my card." When they said goodbye, William continued on his way with a smile on his face. Things were getting better, slowly, but they were. That afternoon, when he returned to the office, he found Andrew agitated. "Mr. Thompson," Mrs. Wilson called, "her husband wants to hire us for a bigger project. He's going to build a small apartment building to rent. He wants us to handle everything." This was the opportunity they had been waiting for. A large project that would pay well and give the firm more visibility. "When does he want to meet?" "Tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon." William nodded. They spent the whole night preparing the presentation, studying the land, doing preliminary calculations. When they arrived at the meeting the next day, they were ready. Mr. Wilson greeted them with a broad smile. "My saviors, sit, sit. Let's talk about this project." The meeting lasted 3 hours. William presented his ideas confidently. He talked about foundation, structure, space utilization. Mr. Wilson listened, fascinated. "William, can I ask you a personal question?" he interrupted at one point. "Of course." "Why, as an engineer with your experience in a small firm, you should be with a big construction company?" William exchanged a look with Andrew. Then he decided to be honest. "I went through some personal problems. I needed a fresh start. And this small firm gave me that chance." "Problem solved?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it." Mr. Wilson nodded, seeming to understand more than William had said. "Well, then I'll help you grow. The project is yours. Let's sign the contract next week." When they left the meeting, Andrew was beaming. "Mr. Thompson, we did it. It's our biggest project." "We did it together, son. This is teamwork." That night, they celebrated with pizza. Sitting in the office, the two talked animatedly about the future. William felt light for the first time in months. "Mr. Thompson, can I ask you something?" Andrew suddenly got serious. "Go ahead." "Have you ever thought about forgiving your children?" The question caught William off guard. He fell silent, chewing slowly. "I don't know if I can, Andrew. What they did to me, I understand. But holding a grudge only hurts you. They'll live their lives anyway. You're the one who will carry that pain." William knew Andrew was right, but forgiving wasn't easy, not when the wound was still open. "I'll think about it," was all he could say. The following days were intense. They started working on the building project. It was 6 small apartments, well laid out. William designed every detail carefully, drawing on his decades of experience. Andrew handled the approvals, permits, the bureaucratic part. They worked well together, each in their role. It was during one of these work afternoons that the phone rang. Andrew answered. "A. Miller, Design and Constructions." Yes, he's here." "One moment." He covered the receiver and looked at William. "It's a Robert. Says he's your son." William's heart skipped a beat. Robert, the eldest son, the one who had started the eviction. With trembling hands, he took the phone. "Hello? Dad. I need to talk to you. It's urgent." Robert's voice was different. It seemed distressed. "I'm listening." "I can't talk on the phone. Can we meet? Please, it's important." William hesitated. Part of him wanted to hang up, but it was his son. Even though he had done what he did, it was his son. "When? Now? I'm near downtown. Can I stop by?" "Come over." Half an hour later, Robert was in the office. He looked around, saw the sofa where his father slept, the table full of projects. His face showed surprise and something else. Shame, perhaps. "Dad, Speak, Robert." William crossed his arms. Andrew discreetly left, leaving father and son alone. Robert took a deep breath. "I lost my job. A week ago. The store is sinking again, new debts. I don't know what to do anymore." William felt a mix of emotions. Part of him wanted to say, "I told you so." Another part, the father part, wanted to help. And you came here, why? Because I need help. Robert lowered his eyes. Money. I know you have something saved up. And there it was. It wasn't an apology. It was a request for money. Robert, look around. William gestured. Look where I'm living. I sleep on an old couch. I have no house, no car. What makes you think I have money to give you? But you're working. I'm starting over, from scratch, at 70 years old, because I was thrown out by my own children. Robert turned red. Dad, it was a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. William felt the anger rising. You threw me out like trash, and now, months later, you show up wanting money. Not even a sorry, Dad. Not even an I was wrong. I'm sorry, Robert said, but it sounded forced. No, you're not. You're sorry you lost your job. You're sorry you're in debt. But you're not sorry for what you did to me. Dad, please. The store is all I have. If I lose it... I saved your store once, Robert. I spent everything I had. Did you know that? Robert looked up, confused. What? 5 years ago, when you were drowning. I sold a plot of land, took out a loan. I paid off your debts in silence. So you wouldn't feel humiliated. Robert's face changed as the information sank in. Surprise, disbelief, shame. You did that? I did. Because you were my son. Because I loved you. Because parents do these things. I didn't know. You didn't know because you weren't paying attention. Because you only thought of yourself. William shook his head. And now you want me to do it again. But I have nothing left to give, Robert. I spent everything on you all throughout my life, and when I needed you, you sent me away. A heavy silence fell over the office. Robert was pale, processing everything. Dad, I was wrong. We were wrong. But can't you help us? Just one more time? William looked at his son. He saw in him the boy he once held in his arms, the kid he taught to ride a bike. Where had he gone wrong as a father? How had that boy become this man? No, he said finally. I won't give you money, but I'll give you something better. What? Some advice. Stop expecting others to solve your problems. Work, strive, sacrifice. Like I did my whole life, it's the only way to grow. Robert stood there a moment longer, seeming to want to say something, but then he just turned his back and left. When Andrew returned to the office, he found William sitting, staring into space. Mr. Thompson, are you okay? I am, or I will be. He took a deep breath. It was hard, but it was necessary. You did the right thing. Did I? Sometimes I don't know what's right or wrong when it comes to children. Andrew sat beside him. Mr. Thompson, can I tell you something? Go ahead. My father passed away when I was 15. Cancer. It was too fast. We didn't have time to make peace over some silly fights we'd had. William looked at the young man. I'm sorry, Andrew. For years I regretted it. The harsh words, the lost time. I'd give anything to have him here, even if it was just to argue again. Andrew paused. That's why I value you so much. I see in you the father I lost, the wisdom, the patience, the care. William felt his eyes well up. Son, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. I just want you to know that you're important. To me, to the clients, to many people. Your children don't see that yet, but one day they'll realize what they've lost. Those words touched William in a way he hadn't expected. Here was someone who saw him, who valued him, and he wasn't his blood son, but he was being more of a son than the ones he had raised. Thank you, Andrew, from the heart. The two went back to work, but something had changed. A stronger bond had formed between them. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. In the following weeks, work on the building project was progressing well. Construction had begun, and William went to the construction site every day to supervise. His experience made all the difference. The workers respected him, following his instructions to the letter. Andrew continued seeking new clients. The firm's reputation was growing. Susan, William's former colleague, had sent 2 smaller projects, and every well-done job generated referrals. One afternoon, William was at the site when he saw a familiar woman standing across the street. It was Jennifer, his middle daughter. She was just watching. When their eyes met, Jennifer lowered her head and quickly walked away. William kept thinking about that for the rest of the day. Why was she there? Was she observing? Checking if it was true that he was working? 2 days later, he found the answer. Elizabeth, his wife, appeared at the office. She looked different, thinner, with deep dark circles under her eyes. She seemed to have aged years in just a few months. "William," she said softly, standing in the doorway. He was alone in the office. Andrew had gone out for a meeting. The two stood there, looking at each other. So much time had passed since the last time. "Elizabeth, come in." She entered slowly, looking around just as Robert had done. Her eyes stopped on the sofa, on the blueprints, on the simple life her husband was leading. "So it's true. You're living here?" "Yes." "And sleeping on that sofa?" "Yes." Elizabeth covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders trembled. She was crying. "I didn't want this, William. I didn't want it to come to this. But they pressured me so much, said so many things that you chose to take their side. I'm a mother. They're our children. I couldn't—" "And me? What am I, Elizabeth?" William felt the pain returning. "Your husband of 45 years. Didn't that count?" "Of course it counts. But they said you were senile, that you were making bad decisions, that you needed protection from yourself. And you believed them." I don't know what I believed." She wiped her tears. "But now, I see the mistake. Jennifer saw you working. She told everyone, 'You're not senile. You're fine. You're surviving.'" "Not just surviving, living, thriving." Elizabeth nodded. "That's why I came, to apologize, and to give you a warning." "A warning?" "Robert is saying things. He wants to have you declared incompetent, so he can manage the house, sell it, split the money." William felt a cold shock. He can't do that. He can try. He has a lawyer looking for legal loopholes. "But I'm lucid, working, making decisions. I know, and I'll testify on your behalf if needed. I won't let them do this." It was something, at least, but William didn't know if he could trust her. Elizabeth had chosen before. "Why now, Elizabeth? Why now have you decided to take my side?" She looked into his eyes. There was real regret there. "Because I woke up. Because I realized I spent 45 years with a good man and let our children convince me otherwise. Because I'm afraid of losing you forever." "You've already lost me." The words came out harsh, but they were true. Something had broken that day he was thrown out. Something that couldn't be fixed with apologies. "I know," Elizabeth whispered, "but I hope one day you can forgive me. Not so we can go back, but so you can have peace." She left soon after. William remained there, processing the conversation. The warning about Robert worried him. He needed to protect himself. He needed legal help. When Andrew returned, William told him everything. The young man became serious. "They can try, but they won't succeed. You're working, earning money, making sound decisions. We have proof of that. Satisfied clients, well-executed projects. Still, Robert can cause problems. Then let's get ready. I know a good lawyer. Let's talk to him." The next day they went to the office of Attorney James Anderson, a lawyer specializing in family law. He listened to the whole story and shook his head. "Unfortunately, these cases are more common than we think. Children trying to control their parents, usually for financial interests." "And do they have a chance of succeeding?" William asked. "Small from what I see. You are clearly lucid, productive. But we need to prepare. Gather documents, proof of your capacity, witnesses. How much does it cost?" "Don't worry about that now. Let's solve this first. We'll settle later." But Andrew interrupted. "Attorney James, I'll be direct. How much does your work cost? Because we're still a small office, but we want to pay properly. The lawyer smiled. You're already my clients. You renovated my office 2 months ago. Remember? William remembered. It had been one of the first jobs after partnering with Andrew. Yes, I remember. That work was impeccable. You are serious professionals. So I'll take care of this case as a way of giving back. But I'll accept coffee and a good chat from time to time. William felt relief. He wasn't alone. He had people by his side. The following weeks were spent preparing the defense. Attorney James gathered documents, requested reports. He talked to William's clients, collected testimonies. Meanwhile, William kept working. Mr. Richards' building was taking shape. 6 well-planned apartments with quality finishes. It would be a beautiful project. It was during a visit to the construction site that Mr. Richard called William to talk. William, I'm very satisfied with the work. I want to make you a proposal. What kind of proposal? When the building is ready, I want you to live in one of the apartments, free for 2 years. It's my way of thanking you for saving my home and my family. William was speechless. Mr. Richard, I can't accept that. It's too generous, but I'm not asking, I'm informing, the man smiled. You taught me that doing the right thing pays off. Let me do the right thing too. That night, William couldn't sleep. He would finally have a place of his own to live. No more the office couch, a real apartment. It was as if things were finally falling into place, but the peace didn't last long. A week later, William received a court summons. Robert had filed for guardianship. He claimed that his father was senile and incapable of managing his own assets. Attorney James called them for an urgent meeting. They've acted, but we have good material for the defense. The hearing will be in 3 weeks. And in the meantime, Andrew asked. In the meantime, continue living normally. Work, document everything. The more proof of Mr. William's lucidity, the better. The 3 weeks passed slowly. William felt constant anxiety. What if he lost? What if the judge believed Robert? He could lose everything he had achieved. Andrew noticed the tension. Mr. William, it will work out. You'll see. How can you be so sure? Because the truth always comes out, and the truth is that you are a capable, intelligent, productive man. No judge will ignore that. The day of the hearing arrived. William wore his best suit, the only one he had left. Andrew went with him, as did Attorney James. The room was full. Robert was there with his lawyer. Jennifer was also present, but sitting apart from her brother. Michael was by Robert's side. And, to William's surprise, there were more people. Mr. Richard had come. Susan, the former colleague, was there. Even the construction workers had shown up. Mrs. Wilson, the neighbor he had helped, was sitting in the back. The judge, Judge Thomas Blackwell, entered and everyone stood up. Good morning, everyone. Let's begin. This is a petition for interdiction filed by Mr. Robert against his father, William Thompson. The claim is of mental incapacity to manage his own assets. Robert's lawyer began speaking. He alleged that William had made irresponsible decisions, spending money unnecessarily, that he was living on the streets in poor conditions, that he needed protection. Then it was Attorney James Anderson's turn. He presented the documents, projects signed by William, executed contracts, payments received, testimonials from satisfied clients. Your Honor, Mr. William Thompson is not only capable, but he is thriving professionally. He returned to the workforce at 70 years old and is building a solid career. But he's living in an office, Robert's lawyer contested, sleeping on a sofa. By choice, Attorney James Anderson countered. Not out of necessity. He has better offers, but chose to invest in the business. The judge then called witnesses. Mr. Richard Wilson went up first. Mr. William saved my house. He discovered structural problems that 3 other professionals missed. He's the most competent engineer I've ever known. Susan spoke next. I worked with William for years. He's an impeccable professional. His age only added experience and wisdom. One by one, the witnesses spoke, all in defense of William, showing his capability, his clarity, his professionalism. When Mrs. Wilson stepped up, the mood shifted. This man saved my life, she said, her voice emotional. He spent his own money to get me treatment. He barely knew me, but he helped me, and now his children want to punish him for that? What a shame. Robert turned red. Jennifer lowered her head. The judge then asked if Robert wanted to say something. He stood up, but seemed to have lost his confidence. I just wanted to protect my father. I thought he was making wrong decisions." "And now?" the judge asked. "After hearing all this, do you still think he's incapable?" Robert didn't answer. The judge banged the gavel. "Petition denied. Mr. William Thompson is clearly of sound mind. More than that, he's setting an example in life and work. This lawsuit never should have been filed." Court adjourned. William felt his legs go weak. Andrew supported him, smiling. "I told you it would work out." Attorney James Anderson shook his hand. "Congratulations, Mr. William. Justice was served." People approached, congratulating William. Mr. Richard Wilson gave him a strong hug. Susan kissed his cheek. Mrs. Wilson cried with joy. Robert quickly left the room without looking back. Michael went with him, but Jennifer stayed. She slowly approached her father. "Dad, I'm sorry. For everything." William looked at her. He saw real tears there, genuine remorse. "Jennifer, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that I was wrong. I let Robert influence me. I let greed speak louder. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw you working. I saw how much people respect you, and I realized the problem wasn't you. It was us. It's always been us." William didn't know what to say. The anger he felt was still there, but mixed with something else, perhaps the beginning of understanding. "I'll need time, Jennifer. I can't just forgive and forget." "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm very proud of you, of the man you are, of the father you've always been." She turned and left. William stood there, feeling conflicting emotions. Andrew put a hand on his shoulder. "Shall we celebrate? I think we deserve it." They went to a nearby restaurant. Mr. Richard Wilson insisted on paying. They were joined by attorney James Anderson, Susan, Mrs. Wilson, and some workers. It was an impromptu but joyful party. William looked around the table. They weren't his blood family, but they were people who cared about him, who respected him, who valued him, and perhaps that was enough. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, the following months were a time of growth. Mr. Richard's building was completed, 6 beautiful, well-built apartments, and William moved into one of them, as agreed. It was a small but comfortable apartment. It had a living room, bedroom, kitchen and bathroom. Large windows let the sun in. For someone who had slept on a couch for months, it was a palace. Andrew helped with the move. There wasn't much to take, just clothes, some technical books, and the old family photo that William kept. "A fresh start, Mr. Thompson," Andrew said, looking around the apartment. "Yes, but I'll miss the office. The office is still there, and you will be too. You just won't sleep there anymore." In the following days, William furnished the apartment little by little. He bought a bed, a small sofa, a table. Simple but functional things. He didn't need luxury. He needed comfort. The business kept growing. With Mr. Richards' building finished and well done, new clients appeared. A businessman wanted to build a small housing complex. A school needed renovations. A family wanted to design their dream home. Andrew hired 2 more employees, a draftsman and a junior engineer. The office was thriving, and William was at the center of it all, guiding, teaching, supervising. But not everything was perfect. Robert had given up on contact, and the relationship was permanently broken. Michael also kept his distance. Only Jennifer called occasionally, trying to reconnect. Elizabeth had filed for divorce. William signed the papers without hesitation. There was no bitterness, just resignation. 45 years together, but she had chosen the children, and he had moved on. One afternoon, William was supervising the renovation of a school when he felt a pain in his chest. Strong, sharp. His legs gave way, and he fell to a sitting position. "Mr. Thompson," a worker ran to him. "Are you okay?" Just need to breathe." But the pain didn't go away. It got worse. His left arm began to tingle, and then William understood. He was having a heart attack. "Call an ambulance," he managed to say before everything went dark. He woke up in the hospital. White lights, the smell of medicine, the noise of machines. He was alive. Andrew was sitting by the bed. When he saw William open his eyes, he smiled, but it was a worried smile. "Mr. Thompson, thank God." "What happened?" "You had a heart problem. You had surgery. They put in 2 stents, but you'll be okay." William processed the information. Heart problem, surgery. He really was getting old. His body was demanding payment. "How long have I been here?" 2 days. The surgery was yesterday." "And the work? The school project?" "Mr. Thompson, forget about work now. You need to recover." But William was stubborn. Even lying in the hospital bed, he kept giving instructions, making calls, guiding. On the 3rd day, he had visitors. Mr. Richard showed up with fruit. Susan brought flowers. Mrs. Wilson arrived with a written prayer. The workers sent a card signed by everyone. And then, to his surprise, his children appeared, all 3 together, Robert, Jennifer, and Michael. They stood at the door of the room, unsure if they should enter. Andrew noticed the tension and stood up. "I'll go get some coffee," he said, giving them privacy. The children approached the bed. Robert looked embarrassed. Michael looked at the floor. Jennifer's eyes were red from crying. "Dad," Robert began, "we heard. We came as soon as we found out." "How did you find out?" William asked, his voice still weak. "Elizabeth told us," Jennifer said. "She's been in touch with Mrs. Wilson. She heard from her." Silence fell over the room. The children didn't know what to say. William didn't know what to feel. "Dad, I need to say something." Robert finally spoke. "I was wrong. We were wrong. What we did to you was terrible, unforgivable." "I agree," William said simply. But we'd like to try to fix it, if you'll let us." William looked at the 3 of them, his children, raised with so much love and care, who had hurt him deeply, but who were still his children. "I don't know if it can be fixed. Some things, when they break, don't go back to what they were." "We know," Jennifer said, "but we can build something new, a different relationship, based on real respect." "And what changed? Why do you want this now?" "Because we almost lost you," Michael spoke for the first time, "and we realized that money is worthless if we lose our father in the process." They were beautiful words, but William had learned not to trust easily. He needed time. He needed to see actions, not just words. "I'll think about it," he said, "but don't expect things to go back to how they were, because they won't." The children nodded and left. When Andrew returned, he found William thoughtful. "How did it go?" he asked. "Complicated. They want to get close again. And do you want that?" "I don't know. Part of me does. Another part is afraid of getting hurt again." "That's normal. You don't need to decide right now. Give it time." William stayed in the hospital for 5 more days. When he was discharged, he left with a list of medications and restrictions, no physical exertion for a few weeks, controlled diet, light walks. Andrew took him home. The apartment seemed even more welcoming now. Mr. Wilson had had everything tidied up, fresh flowers placed. There were get well notes everywhere. In the following days, William had to learn to slow down. He couldn't go to the construction sites. He worked from home, reviewing plans, making calls. Andrew visited him every day, bringing reports and taking instructions. It was during this forced recovery that William had time to think about life, about choices, about family. He had built a solid career, raised 3 children, been a good husband. Where had he gone wrong? Or maybe he hadn't. Maybe he had done everything right, but his children had chosen wrong. It wasn't his fault they had become selfish. He had given them love, education, example. The rest was their responsibility. And now he had Andrew, a young man who wasn't his blood son, but who treated him with more affection and respect than his own children. He had Mrs. Wilson, who prayed for him every day. He had Mr. Wilson, who had become a friend. He had a new network of good people. Jennifer started visiting him. Once a week she showed up with fruit or food. She didn't stay long, didn't force conversation, just showed her presence. William appreciated that. It was a start, small but real. Robert and Michael didn't show up again, and William didn't pressure them. Everyone in their own time, in their own process. After 6 weeks, the doctor cleared William to return to work gradually. He was eager. Work was part of who he was. Being idle had been hard. On his first day back at the office, he was greeted with a surprise party. Andrew had organized everything. There was cake, snacks, soda. All the employees were there, along with some clients. "Welcome back, boss," Andrew shouted, and everyone applauded. William felt his eyes well up. Boss. Just a few months ago he was sleeping on a park bench. Now he was a boss. He had a business, he had an apartment, he had people who cared. "Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everything," was all he could say. Work had piled up during his absence. Andrew had handled the basics, but there were decisions only William could make. He dove back in, happy to be useful again. A new big project came in. A construction company wanted to hire the firm to supervise the construction of a 12-story building. It was the largest contract to date. William studied the project carefully. There were some issues in the original design, which he corrected. The construction company was impressed with his expertise and increased the contract value. "Mr. Thompson, we're growing," Andrew celebrated. "In less than a year, we've gone from a small office to competing with big companies. It's honest work, son. It always pays off." But with growth came challenges. They needed more employees, a larger office, better equipment. William and Andrew spent nights planning the expansion. They decided to rent a larger commercial space in a better located building. They hired 3 more engineers and 2 architects. They bought new computers, plotters, modern equipment. The investment was high, but necessary, and the return came quickly. Within 6 months, they already had 7 projects running simultaneously. William had never felt so professionally fulfilled. Even when working for large construction companies, he never had the autonomy and respect he had now. His age, which many would see as a disadvantage, was his greatest asset. Experience couldn't be bought. It was during this growth phase that Elizabeth appeared at the office. William hadn't seen her since the divorce request a few months back. She looked different, even thinner, more grey hair. But there was a determination in her that William hadn't seen in a long time. "Elizabeth, what brings you here? We need to talk, calmly, without fighting. Can we?" William hesitated, but agreed. They went to a nearby coffee shop. They sat at a corner table, away from curious ears. "Are you happy with the divorce?" William asked. "No, but it was necessary," she replied. "Not because the love ended, but because the illusion ended." "What illusion?" "That our family was perfect, that we had raised wonderful children, that everything was fine." William took a sip of coffee. It was bitter, but he didn't ask for sugar. "I lived in that illusion too. William, I came to apologize to you, truly. Not just for the day they kicked you out, but for all the years I didn't defend you as I should. How many times did you make the right decisions and I questioned them? How many times were you generous and I complained?" "Many," he admitted. "I was wrong, and now I'm paying the price. I live alone in that big house. Robert only shows up when he needs something. Michael barely speaks to me. Jennifer is trying to fix things, but the pain is still there. And why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that I recognize your successes, and mainly I want you to know that even separated, I still admire you. What you built after you left, it's incredible." William didn't expect to hear that. He expected demands, maybe requests, but not admiration. "Thank you, but it wasn't easy." "I imagine not. But you did it, alone." "Not alone. I had help. Andrew, Mr. Wilson, other good people. And they had you. It was an exchange, not charity." They fell silent for a moment. 45 years of marriage don't just disappear. There was history there, memories, good moments. "I won't ask for us to get back together," Elizabeth said. "I know that's not possible, but I wish we could be friends, that you wouldn't hate me." "I never hated you, Elizabeth. I was hurt, disappointed, but hate, no." So can we try a friendship? Over time, William thought. Would it be possible to be friends with his ex-wife? Maybe. Stranger things had happened in his life. We can try, no pressure, no expectations, just see where it goes. Elizabeth smiled for the first time. It was a sad smile, but genuine. Thank you, William, for everything, for the past, for the forgiveness, for the chance. She got up to leave but turned back. Oh, and one more thing, I'm selling the house. William raised his eyebrows. Selling? It's too big for me alone, and there are too many memories, good and bad. I'm going to buy a smaller apartment, start fresh like you did. And the boys? Did they agree? I don't have to ask for permission anymore. The house is in my name too, and honestly, I don't care about their opinion on this anymore. There was strength in those words. Elizabeth was changing. Late, but she was. After she left, William kept thinking. Life takes strange turns. Who would have thought he'd be kicked out of his own house and months later be better than ever? The construction of the 12-story building was progressing. William supervised personally, going to the site 3 times a week. The builders respected him deeply. When he spoke, everyone listened. One day, while checking the structure on the 5th floor, he noticed something wrong. Some beams were poorly positioned. It wasn't the professionals from his office who had done that, but the old designers. William stopped the work immediately. "No one works here until we fix this," he ordered. The construction company's lead engineer got nervous. "But Mr. Thompson, this will delay everything. And if we don't fix it, the building could collapse. Which do you prefer, delay or tragedy?" They spent 2 days correcting the mistake. It was expensive. It was laborious. But when they finished, the structure was safe. The owner of the construction company, who had initially been angry about the delay, came personally to thank William. "You saved not only the building, but my company. If something had happened, I would have been held responsible. Thank you for your integrity." Stories like this began to circulate. William Thompson, the engineer who wasn't afraid to stop work to do what's right, who put safety above profit, who had principles. More clients sought out the office. They wanted the guarantee that only William could give. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Andrew could barely handle all the demand. "Mr. Thompson, we need more people. We can't keep up." "Then let's hire, but carefully. I want competent and honest people." They conducted a rigorous selection process. William personally interviewed each candidate. He didn't just want a good resume. He wanted character. In the end, they hired 5 new professionals. The office was big now, 15 employees, 2 floors of office space, projects all over the city. It was a real company. One afternoon, William received a call from Susan, his former colleague. "William, I need to tell you something. The company where I work is closing. Bankruptcy. I'm looking for a job." William didn't hesitate. "Come work with me. We have space and you're excellent at what you do." "Really? You'd take me?" "Of course. Come talk with us this week." Susan joined the team and brought with her more experience and contacts. The network kept growing. A year had passed since William had been kicked out. A whole year. And looking back, he hardly recognized the life he had now. Andrew organized a celebration party. They gathered the entire office team, important clients, friends. It was in a small but cozy hall. During the party, Mr. Wilson asked to speak. "I want to make a toast to the man who changed my life and many others here. William Thompson, you are an example of honesty, hard work, and resilience. Thank you for existing." Everyone applauded. William was moved. He looked around and saw friendly faces, people who cared. He was rich in a way that money could never buy. Andrew also gave a speech. "A year ago, I saw a gentleman sleeping on a park bench. I offered help, but it was he who had so much more to offer me. Mr. Thompson isn't just my partner. He's my mentor, my friend, my father in spirit. Thank you for trusting me, for teaching me not just about engineering, but about life." The words touched William deeply. He stood up to speak, but his voice came out choked. "I'm the one who should thank you, all of you, for giving me a second chance, for showing me that starting over is worth it, and most of all, for teaching me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who stays, who supports, who believes." The party went on late into the night. William talked to everyone, laughed, told stories. He was happy in a way he couldn't remember being in years. When the party ended and he returned home, he stood at the window looking at the city. Lexington at night was beautiful. The lights twinkled, the mountains in the background were a dark silhouette against the sky. 1 year ago he was lost, directionless, sleeping on a park bench. Today he had a company, an apartment, a purpose. Life had taken a complete turn. His phone rang. It was Jennifer. "Dad, happy birthday. 1 year of a fresh start." William smiled. Jennifer had remembered. "Thank you, daughter. How are you?" "Good. I'd like to see you if possible. I have something to tell you." "When?" "Tomorrow. Can I come by your place?" "Yes, you can." The next day, Jennifer arrived punctually. She looked different, lighter, with a sparkle in her eyes that William hadn't seen in a long time. "Dad, I've made a decision," she began. "I'm getting a divorce." William wasn't expecting that. "A divorce? From George?" "Yes. I realized I've been in a loveless marriage for years. I stayed out of convenience, out of fear of judgment. But seeing you start over at 70 gave me courage. If you could do it, so can I." "Are you sure? It's a big decision." "I am. And what's more, I've made another decision. I'm quitting the bank. I've always wanted to be a teacher. I'm going to do that now." William looked at his daughter. He was seeing in her something he hadn't seen since she was a child. Her own determination, no longer following what others expected, but what she wanted. "I'm proud of you, Jennifer." She began to cry. "It's been years since I've heard that. Dad, I'm so sorry for everything. If I could turn back time." "You can't. No one can. But you can move forward differently." "That's what I'm trying to do." Inspired by you, they spent the afternoon talking. Jennifer told him her plans, her fears, her hopes. William listened, advised, supported. He was being a father again, but in a different way. No longer a provider, but a mentor. In the following months, the relationship with Jennifer was slowly rebuilt. Slowly, carefully. She visited regularly. He helped her move to a smaller apartment. He was there when she started teaching. Robert and Michael remained distant. But William had made peace with that. He couldn't force closeness. He had to let it happen naturally if it was meant to be. The company continued to grow. They were now recognized throughout Lexington. The name Miller & Thompson Designs was synonymous with quality and trust. Andrew had met a girl, Emily, and was seriously dating. He brought her to meet William, as nervous as if he were introducing her to his father. "Mr. William, this is Emily." The girl was friendly, an elementary school teacher. She had kind eyes and an easy smile. "Pleasure, Emily." "Andrew talks a lot about you." "The pleasure is mine, Mr. William. Andrew talks even more about you. He says you're his hero." William looked at Andrew, who turned red. "Don't exaggerate," the young man murmured. "It's not an exaggeration," Emily insisted. "He tells your stories, your lessons. You are very important to him." In that moment, William understood completely. He had lost 3 children by blood, but he had gained a son in his heart. And perhaps that was even more special, because it was a choice, not an obligation, but a desire. They spent the day together, the 3 of them. William told old stories, made jokes, gave advice about relationships. It was a family day, a chosen family, but a family nonetheless. 2 years after being thrown out of his home, William received an unexpected invitation. A university in Richmond wanted him to give lectures on engineering ethics. "Me? Lectures?" He was surprised. "You are a living example, Mr. William," the dean said over the phone. "Your stories of halting construction projects, correcting mistakes, prioritizing safety. That's exactly what we want to teach our students." William accepted. He prepared his lecture carefully. He didn't just want to talk about technique. He wanted to talk about principles, about character, about doing the right thing even when it's hard. On the day of the lecture, the auditorium was full. Young students looked at him with curiosity. Who was this white-haired gentleman who was going to teach them? William began by telling his story. From the beginning, hiding nothing. He spoke of the expulsion, the park bench, the fresh start. He spoke of the mistakes he corrected, the projects he stopped, the principles he upheld. The students listened, fascinated. It wasn't just a technical lesson. It was a life lesson. At the end, a student raised her hand. "Professor William, weren't you angry with your children? Didn't you want revenge?" "I was angry, yes, very much so. But anger would only hurt me. So I chose to move forward, to build something new. And you know what I discovered? That the best kind of revenge is to live well." Everyone applauded. The lecture was a success, and it led to other invitations. Other universities wanted to hear him. Engineering magazines wanted to interview him. William Thompson was becoming a reference, not just as an engineer, but as an example of life. Andrew was proud. "Mr. William, you're famous." "I don't want fame. I just want to make a difference." "And you are. More than you imagine." Life had taken a turn that William could never have predicted, and it was good. Tiring sometimes, challenging often, but good. Elizabeth had sold the house and bought a small apartment downtown. She and William kept in touch sporadically. They weren't close friends, but there was cordiality. Time had healed some wounds. Jennifer had graduated as a teacher and was happy in her new life. She visited her father regularly, and their relationship was slowly rebuilding. Robert had lost his store and was working as a manager at another company. Pride had been swallowed by necessity. He didn't seek out his father, but William had found out through others that he spoke of his father with admiration to his co-workers. Michael had moved to New York. He rarely sent news. William had accepted that some relationships weren't meant to be fixed. Andrew and Emily had gotten engaged. They were planning a wedding for the following year, and they had a request for William. "Mr. William, we wanted you to be our best man," Andrew said, emotional. "You are the most important person in my life. There wouldn't be anyone better." William felt his eyes sting. "It would be an honor, son." The word came out naturally, son, because that's what Andrew was to him. Not by blood, but by heart. The wedding day was beautiful, a simple ceremony but full of love. William stood by Andrew's side, proud, and when it was time to speak, he prepared words from the heart. "I met Andrew when he offered me a sandwich during a difficult time in my life. He didn't know who I was, but he extended a hand, and that hand changed everything. Today I see this young man getting married, building his family, and I feel I did something right, because if I managed to help someone like he helped me, then it was all worth it." There wasn't a dry eye in the hall. After the wedding, Andrew and Emily moved into a small house, but they kept the tradition of having dinner with William every week. It was sacred to them. The company continued to grow, but William was thinking about slowing down. At 72, he felt he wanted to enjoy life more, travel a bit, see places, rest. He talked to Andrew about it. "I think it's time to pass more responsibilities to you and the team. Are you retiring?" "Not completely, but I want to work less, 3 days a week maybe." Andrew understood. "You deserve that. You've built so much, worked so hard. Time to reap the rewards, and that's what William did. He gradually reduced his workload. He started dedicating time to hobbies he had abandoned. He returned to taking long walks, reading books for pleasure, simply sitting and observing life." Mrs. Wilson had become a great friend. She was older too, but still strong. Every Thursday they had coffee together and talked about everything. "You saved my life, William," she always said. "And you helped save mine without even knowing it." Because it was true. If he hadn't sold the Ford Mustang to help Mrs. Wilson, he wouldn't have been kicked out. And if he hadn't been kicked out, he wouldn't have met Andrew. He wouldn't have rebuilt his life. He wouldn't have discovered what he was capable of. Life had a funny way of making sense in the end. 3 years after being kicked out, on Mrs. Wilson's 80th birthday, William organized a surprise party. He gathered neighbors, friends from the neighborhood, some people from the church she attended. When she arrived and saw everyone there, she started crying. "You did all this for me." "Of course we did," William said, hugging her. "You're special to all of us." During the party, Robert showed up. William didn't expect to see him there. The two looked at each other for a long moment. "Dad, can we talk?" Robert asked quietly. They went to the garden. They stood there, not knowing how to begin. "Dad, I came to apologize, for real, not out of self-interest, not because I need something, but because I realized how wrong I was." William studied his son's face. There was sincerity there, and tiredness too. Robert had aged. Life had been hard on him. "What made you change your mind?" "I lost everything, Dad. The store, my job. I almost lost my family. And at rock bottom, I remembered you. How you always got back up. How you never gave up. And I thought if my father could do it at 70, I can do it at 45. And did you?" "I'm trying. I got a simple job, but it's honest. I'm paying off my debts little by little. I'm trying to be the man you always were." William felt something dissolve inside him, the anger he still held, the resentment he carried. It was time to let go. "Robert, I forgive you." His son began to cry, not delicate tears, but deep sobs, years of guilt dissolving. "I don't deserve." "Nobody deserves forgiveness. That's why it's called forgiveness." William put his hand on his son's shoulder. "But I'll tell you something. Forgiving isn't forgetting. And it doesn't mean we go back to how we were. But we can build something new if you want." "I do, very much." "Then let's try. Gradually, no rush. Let's see where it goes." Father and son hugged there in the garden. It was a beginning. Small, fragile. But it was something. They returned to the party together. Jennifer, who had seen everything from afar, smiled with tears in her eyes. Not everything was lost. Some bridges could be rebuilt. The following months were about reconnecting. Robert visited him once a week. They didn't talk about the past, but built the present. They talked about work, about life, about lessons learned. Michael was still distant, but had sent a message on William's birthday. It was little, but it was something. The company had stabilized at a good size. It wasn't giant, but it was solid. Andrew handled almost everything now, with William only appearing for specific consultations and mentoring. One day, Andrew came with news. "Mr. William, Emily is pregnant." William stood up and hugged the young man. "Congratulations, son, you're going to be a father. And we wanted you to be the grandfather. Not by blood, but by heart." William couldn't hold back his tears. He had lost the chance to be a grandfather to his own children. Robert and Jennifer had no children. Michael was far away, but now he had this new chance. "It would be the greatest honor of my life." When the baby was born, a girl they named Olivia, William was there. Holding the little one in his arms, he felt something complete inside him. He was a grandfather. By choice, but a grandfather. He started visiting them every week. Watching Olivia grow was his greatest joy. And Andrew made sure she called him Grandpa William. Life had come full circle. He had lost one family and gained another, different but equally valuable. 5 years after being kicked out, William was sitting in his apartment, looking at photos. There were old photos with his young children, more recent ones with Andrew, Emily, and Olivia. Photos with the office team, photos from lectures. It was a rich life, not in money but in relationships, in purpose, in meaning. His phone rang. It was Elizabeth. "William, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. And you?" "Good. I wanted to tell you that I'm dating someone." William smiled. "Oh, really? Tell me more." "He's a retired teacher I met at the square. We used to talk every afternoon, and it happened. I'm happy for you, Elizabeth, truly." "Thank you. And you? How are things?" "Good. Very good. I have a granddaughter now, you know. Well, a granddaughter of the heart." "I heard. Jennifer told me. I'm glad you've built a new family." "And you? How are things with the boys?" "Jennifer and I are doing well. She's changed a lot for the better. Robert is trying to reconnect. Michael is still distant. That's his path. You have to respect it." "Yes. William, thank you." "For what?" "For teaching me, even without meaning to. You started over at 70 and gave me the courage to do the same. It's never too late, Elizabeth. Never." After the phone call, William returned to the photos. He thought about everything he had been through. The pain of being kicked out, the humiliation of sleeping on the street, the fear of the future, but also meeting Andrew, his professional growth, the new relationships he had built. If he could go back and avoid all that, would he? He wasn't sure, because if he hadn't gone through that, he wouldn't have become who he was now. He wouldn't have learned the lessons he learned. He wouldn't have met the people he met. The pain had been the path to growth, and although he wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, he had to admit it had transformed him. The following Sunday, the whole family gathered for lunch. Andrew, Emily, and Olivia, Jennifer and her new boyfriend, a kind teacher she had met at school, Robert, who came with his wife, Mrs. Wilson, Mr. Richard and his wife, Susan. The table was full, not just with food, but with laughter, conversations, life. William looked around and felt deep gratitude. He had been through a terrible storm, but he had reached a safe harbor. A different harbor than he had imagined, but safe nonetheless. Andrew raised his glass, a toast to Mr. William, to the man who taught me that family is who stays, that starting over is possible, that it's never too late to live with dignity. Everyone raised their glasses. William was too emotional to speak. He just nodded, thanking them. After lunch, when everyone had left, William stayed on the balcony watching the sunset. Andrew had stayed to help clean up. "Mr. William, are you happy?" "Very, son. Very. You deserve all this happiness." "I don't know if I deserve it, but I'm grateful to have it." Andrew sat beside him. "You know, I often think about that day at the square. When I saw you for the first time, something told me to help. To this day, I don't know what it was. Destiny, perhaps, or simply humanity, seeing someone in need and reaching out. You reached out and changed my life, Andrew, and I hope I've changed yours too. You have, completely. You gave me a father. You taught me how to be a real man. You showed me what character is." The two stayed there in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. William's life had been a journey of losses and gains. He had lost his home, his children, for a while, his wife. But he had gained dignity, purpose, a new family. He had gained respect, recognition, inner peace. And most importantly, he had gained himself back. He discovered that he was strong, capable, resilient, that he could start over at 70, that his age was an advantage, not a disadvantage, that his experience had real value. In the following years, William continued his life with balance. He worked little, enjoyed life a lot. He watched Olivia grow up, gave occasional lectures, mentored young engineers. Robert grew closer and closer. The relationship never returned to what it was, but it was good. There was mutual respect, even admiration. Jennifer became his best friend. They talked almost every day, shared dreams and fears, supported each other. Michael started giving news again. He still lived far away, but called monthly. It was what was possible, and William had learned to value the possible. Elizabeth married the professor. William attended the wedding and wished her sincere happiness. There was no resentment. Time had healed the wounds. Richard became one of his best friends. They played chess every week and discussed everything, from politics to football. Mrs. Wilson remained strong at 85 years old. She was the matriarch of the group, giving advice and prayers for everyone. The company prospered under Andrew's leadership. It had become a reference in Lexington and the surrounding area, and it all started with an old engineer and a young businessman who believed in him. William had turned 75 when he decided to retire for good. Not completely, but almost. He maintained very occasional consulting only in special cases. On the day of his retirement party, the hall was packed. Longtime clients, employees, friends, family, all there to celebrate not just a career, but the life of a man of principles. The mayor of Lexington was there and gave a speech. William Thompson is an example of what it means to be a good citizen, not just for professional excellence, but for moral integrity. Lexington is proud to have a man like him. William received an honorary merit plaque, but what moved him the most was the video that Andrew had prepared. It contained testimonials, dozens of them, from people he had helped throughout his life, workers who learned from him, clients whose homes were saved, students inspired by his lectures, and at the end Andrew appeared in the video holding Olivia in his lap. Dad, not by blood, but by choice. This man saved me when I didn't even know I needed saving. He taught me that success isn't about having much, but about being much. That wealth isn't measured in money, but in relationships. That family is who stays. Olivia, one day you'll understand how lucky you are to have this grandfather. I already understand. And I'm grateful every day for that moment when I decided to offer a sandwich in the square. It was the best investment of my life. When the lights came on, William was crying. Not tears of sadness, but of deep gratitude. He stood up to speak, and the hall fell silent. 6 years ago, I was sleeping on a park bench. I had been kicked out of my own home, abandoned by my children, lost everything. I thought my life was over. But I was wrong. It was just beginning again. He paused, looking at all the faces before him. I learned that age doesn't matter. Attitude does. That you can start over at 70, 80, 90. That it's never too late to reinvent yourself. That dignity isn't about having much, but about keeping your principles. He looked at Andrew. I learned that family isn't just blood. It's who stands by you when you need them. It's who believes in you when no one else does. It's who extends a hand without asking for anything in return. He looked at Robert and Jennifer, who were together. I learned that forgiving sets you free. It doesn't free the one who is forgiven, but the one who forgives. And that some relationships can be rebuilt, not as they were, but as something new. He looked at everyone again. I learned that doing the right thing may cost dearly in the short term, but it always pays off in the long run. That people value character above all, and that leaving a legacy isn't about money, but about example. His voice became choked. Thank you, all of you, for giving me a chance when I needed it, for believing in me, for building this beautiful journey with me. If I died tomorrow, I would die happy, because I lived, truly. The ovation was long and sincere. People stood up, applauded, cried. When the party ended, William was exhausted but fulfilled. Andrew took him home. Dad, everything you said was true. You changed my life, and you changed mine, son. We're even in this. That night, before sleeping, William wrote in his diary, something he hadn't done in years. Today I truly retired, not from life but from formal work, and looking back, I see an incredible journey. I started as a young engineer, built a career, a family. I hit rock bottom when I was expelled, but I got up, and the fresh start was better than the original beginning. I learned valuable lessons. That age is just a number, that it's never too late, that the right people appear when you need them, that doing the right thing always is the way. Today, I'm richer than ever, not in material goods, but in relationships. I have a son in heart who loves me, a granddaughter who calls me grandpa, true friends, and even some reconciliation with my blood children. If I could give advice to someone going through tough times, it would be, don't give up. Life has strange ways of making sense. What seems like an end may just be a fresh start. Pain can be the path to growth. And most importantly, keep your principles, even when it's hard, even when it seems not worth it, because that's what defines who you are. I sleep tonight grateful for everything I went through, for everything I learned, for everyone I met. Life is good when you know how to appreciate what you have. He closed the diary and turned off the light. Through the window, he saw the stars shining. They were the same stars he saw from the park bench years ago, but now he saw them from a warm, safe place, his own. He smiled in the dark. It had been a long journey, but every step had been worth it. The following years were peaceful. William truly enjoyed his retirement. He traveled to places he always wanted to see, spent more time with Olivia, watching her grow, gave advice when asked, but mostly just lived. Andrew fully took over the company, which now even had a branch in another city. William's name remained in tribute. Miller & Thompson Designs was a known quality brand throughout the region. One day, already 78 years old, William was at home when Robert appeared. He came with an envelope. Dad, I wanted to show you something. William opened it. It was the deed to a small house. I bought my first house, Dad, without help, with my own money. It took years, but I did it. William felt genuine pride. "Congratulations, son. From the heart. I learned from you. Honest work, persistence, dignity. It took me a while to learn, but I did. It's never too late to learn." Father and son hugged. It was a different hug from the old ones. There was respect there, mutual admiration, equality. Jennifer also prospered. She had become principal of the school where she taught. She was respected, loved by students and colleagues. She had found her place. Michael had returned from New York, married with a young son. He had timidly sought out William, asking to rebuild the bridge. William accepted, because it was never too late to rebuild. Elizabeth was happy in her new marriage. She had become a volunteer at a senior support home, working with people her age who had no one. She said she had been inspired by William helping Mrs. Wilson. Life had worked out for everyone, each in their own time, in their own way. Mrs. Wilson passed away at 87. She went to sleep and didn't wake up. It was a peaceful passing, without suffering. At the funeral, William spoke. "This woman saved me without knowing it. When I helped her, I thought I was doing a favor. But she gave me much more. She gave me purpose. She gave me a path. She led me to everything that came after. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson, for everything." It was a difficult farewell, but William had learned to deal with losses. They were part of life. At 80 years old, William decided to write a book, not a technical one, but a memoir. He wanted to tell his story, to inspire, to teach, to show that a fresh start is possible. It took him 2 years to write it. Andrew helped organize it, Jennifer reviewed the text, Robert took the photos. It was a family project. When the book was released, Never Too Late, Memories of a Fresh Start, it was well received. It wasn't a bestseller, but it touched those who read it. Letters arrived from people thanking him, saying it had inspired them to start over too. One letter especially touched William. It was from a 68-year-old man who had lost everything in a bad business deal. He had read the book and decided not to give up. Now he was starting over, inspired by William's story. "See, Dad," Andrew said when he read the letter, "you're still saving lives." William just smiled. He hadn't written the book for fame. He had written it to help, and it was helping. That was enough. Olivia was 8 years old now, smart, curious, full of life. She spent every Saturday with Grandpa William. He taught her chess, told her stories, took her to the park. One day she asked, "Grandpa, is it true that you slept on the street?" "Yes, it's true, little one." "Why?" "Because sometimes life is hard. But you know what I learned? That you can get back up. Always. You're strong, Grandpa." "Not always, Olivia. I had my weak moments, but I had good people around me, like your dad, who helped me. When I grow up, I'm going to help people too." William hugged his granddaughter. The future was secure. Not by him directly, but by the example he left. Olivia would be a woman of character, he was sure, and she would pass that on. Time kept passing. William was slower now at 82, but still lucid, still active. He took walks every morning, played chess, read a lot. Andrew was 45 now and had 2 children. Olivia and the youngest, Ethan. The family was growing. Robert had managed to open his own small business, a mechanic shop. It was going well with a loyal clientele. He had really learned. Jennifer was a grandmother too. Her stepdaughter had a baby. She and William shared grandparenting experiences. Michael lived nearby now. He visited monthly. It wasn't a deep relationship, but it was a relationship. The best possible. Elizabeth was still happily married. She and William had a calm friendship. No romance, but with the affection of those who shared 45 years. Life was good, simple but good. At 85, William had to go to the hospital for a routine checkup. Nothing serious, just monitoring his old heart condition. Andrew took him and stayed with him. "Dad, are you scared?" "No. At my age, you learn that doctors are part of the routine." "Are you afraid of, you know?" William understood the question. If he was afraid of the end of life. "No. I've lived well, I've lived fully. When the time comes, I'll be at peace." "Don't talk like that. You're going to live a long time yet." "I hope so, but if not, it's okay. I've left a legacy. not in money but in example, in relationships, in lives I've touched. Andrew held his father's hand. You're my hero, you always have been, and you're my son, in the way that matters. The test results came back good. William was healthy for his age, heart stable, mind lucid. He could live many more years, and he did. He reached 90 years old, still lucid, and relatively healthy. On his birthday, they threw a big party. People came from all corners of his life, children, grandchildren, friends, former students, former clients. The hall was packed. It was a celebration not just of age, but of a life well lived. William looked around and saw what mattered. Love, respect, connection. He wasn't rich in money, but he was rich in what matters. Andrew gave an emotional speech. 20 years ago, I met a man on a park bench. I thought I was helping him, but he was the one who would help me. He taught me everything important I know, not just about engineering, but about life, about character, about being a real man. Father, thank you for these 20 years, for letting me be your son, for teaching me so much. I love you. William wept openly. At 90, he was no longer ashamed to show emotion. Robert also spoke. Father, I was a terrible son. I made unforgivable mistakes. But you taught me, without knowing it, that it's always possible to start over. It's always possible to improve. Today I'm a better man because of your example. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you. Jennifer crying, Dad, you're my hero. You always were, but it took me too long to see it. Thank you for showing me what real strength is, what true dignity is. I love you so much. Michael, who had traveled to be there. Dad, I was too distant for too long. I lost years that won't come back. But I learned from you that it's never too late. I'll cherish every moment we have left. Thank you for taking me back. Even Elizabeth spoke. William, we were married for 45 years. Then we separated. But you were always a man of honor. You taught me a lot, even through mistakes. Today I see what you've built and I feel proud to have shared my life with you. When the party ended, William was exhausted but happy. Andrew took him home and helped him to bed. Dad, it was a special day. It was, son. It was a perfect day. Dad, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Was it worth it? All the suffering, all the pain, all the difficulty? William thought before answering. It was. Because it brought me here. It brought me you, Olivia, Ethan. It brought reconciliation with my children. It brought me peace. Pain is temporary, son, but the growth that comes from it is forever. Andrew kissed his father's forehead. I love you, old man. I love you too, son. Very much. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this story? Did William do the right thing in helping Mrs. Wilson, even though it cost him his expulsion? Would you have the courage to start over at 70? Leave your opinion in the comments. If you have any story of overcoming to share, tell us about it. And if this story moved you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your participation is very important and helps us continue to bring inspiring stories like this one. Thank you for your company up to here.